Chosen one. Heaven pressed pause on your life, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You have felt the stillness, that heavy silence between what was promised and what has yet to come. You questioned whether you missed something, whether your faith failed, or whether God had turned his face away. But listen carefully now. The delay was not denial. The pause was divine. There are moments when heaven halts movement on earth because the foundation beneath your feet is still being reinforced. What you saw as stillness, God called structure. He was anchoring your spirit for what your destiny would demand. Every unanswered prayer, every slow season, every time the doors stayed closed, they were not signs of abandonment, they were signs of orchestration. You were never forgotten. Chosen one, you were being fortified. God could not allow you to move at the same pace as others because your journey carries eternal consequence. Others run fast, you were called to run far. And that requires a different kind of divine timing. Heaven had to align the unseen before unveiling the seen. Listen, the delay didn't come to break your faith, it came to build your discernment. You learned how to hear his whisper in the absence of thunder. You learned how to stand when nothing around you moved. You learned obedience. Not because it was convenient, but because it was the only thing keeping you from despair. Those nights you cried asking, "When?" Lord, were the very nights heaven wrote your testimony. You are being trained in the art of trust. And trust, chosen one, is not passive. Trust is warfare. Trust is choosing to worship while waiting, to praise while paused. Trust is the declaration that even when heaven is silent, you will not move until he speaks. The delay was the classroom where your faith was perfected. Now look back, can you see it? The people who left, the opportunities that slipped away, the prayers that seemed unanswered, they were protection disguised as disappointment. Had God opened those doors, you might have walked into premature promotion and spiritual collapse. Heaven knows the danger of blessing before readiness. That is why the delay had to happen. The Spirit of God whispers, even now, what looked like stillness was a shield. What looked like silence was strategy. You were hidden so that your oil could mature. The anointing placed on your life was too costly to be exposed too soon. Heaven had to preserve you from counterfeit stages and voices that would have polluted your purity. Every moment of waiting carried eternal meaning. You were being purified from impatience, from pride, from the desire to prove. You were being prepared for purpose, for platforms you didn't yet know existed. Heaven does not waste delay, it sanctifies it. And now, the time approaches when the purpose of your waiting will unfold. You will see how every slow step led you to the exact intersection of divine promise and perfect timing. You will understand that God's pauses are never arbitrary. They are the holy intervals between promise and manifestation. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Chosen one, your waiting was an altar, and on that altar, your impatience died so your destiny could live. Now, heaven whispers, "Rise." The delay was necessary. The silence was sacred. The pause was prophetic. And what is coming will justify every tear, every unanswered prayer, every lonely night you endured. You will soon understand that God was never late. He was exact. The same hands that held you back are the hands now pushing you forward. The clock of heaven does not tick like man's clock. It turns with divine rhythm. and your name has just been called in its eternal timekeeping. There were angels stationed around your waiting, guarding the promise you could not yet carry. Each delay was a shield, not a setback. Heaven was adjusting the atmosphere, aligning the right voices, and silencing the wrong ones, so that when you step out, the world will recognize heaven's mark upon you. You were never standing still, you were being planted. Seeds do not move while they grow. They are hidden in the soil until strength pushes through. You are that seed. Chosen one. The pressure you felt in the darkness was not death, it was birth. The delay was the womb of your destiny. Before you leave this moment, pause again, not in frustration, but in reverence. Take a breath and thank God for the delay, because what He was building in secret will soon be revealed in strength. If this message speaks to your spirit, like, share, and subscribe so the word continues to reach other chosen souls. Comment 777 below as a prophetic act, a declaration that you trust His timing, even when it delays. Chosen one. While you were waiting, heaven was not idle. The delay that made you question your worth was the very season in which God worked most deeply behind the scenes. You did not see the threads being woven, the doors being carved, or the enemies being quietly removed. The silence you endured was the sound of divine construction. Every moment that felt wasted was time being redeemed in invisible realms. You thought heaven had gone quiet because your prayers were unanswered. But no, your words had already reached the throne. The silence was not a void, it was a workshop. God was not ignoring you. He was engineering something far greater than you asked for. The answers you longed for were being refined through fire, adjusted to fit the weight of your purpose. Beloved, if only you could see what heaven saw. When you cried in confusion, angels were dispatched to guard what your heart could not yet carry. When you said, Lord, where are you? His presence surrounded you more closely than ever before. You were never alone in that dark waiting room. Heaven was moving in whispers while the world saw stillness. Do you remember those sudden shifts, the people who vanished, the opportunities that dried up overnight? They were not coincidences. They were divine edits. God was cutting away everything that could not go with you into the next chapter. You were not being abandoned, you were being preserved. The stage of your future required purity, not popularity. There is always hidden work behind closed doors. You were being tested in the unseen so that your reward could be undeniable. Many look for miracles, but few are willing to be molded in the secret place where character is carved and calling is confirmed. Heaven saw you remain faithful when no one was watching. Heaven saw the prayers you whispered through clenched tears. Heaven saw your surrender, not loud, not public, but sincere. This hidden labor is the soil where divine power grows. Every act of humility, every moment you refused to retaliate, every time you loved despite rejection, those were the building blocks of the mantle you now carry. God was sculpting your spirit, chiseling away pride, teaching you to trust the unseen hand that guides your every step. Chosen one, understand this truth before God reveals. He refines. Before He promotes, He purifies. The delay was your refining fire, and though it burned, it also blessed. You are not who you were when the waiting began. You are wiser, stronger, softer, and more discerning. You now know the value of silence and the beauty of surrender. When heaven hides you, It is because the world is not ready for what is about to emerge. The oil of your calling cannot be poured out prematurely. There were seasons when you wanted visibility, but God gave you invisibility. There were times when you prayed for acceleration, but heaven chose protection. What you saw as delay was actually mercy in motion. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 27, verse 14. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, yes. Wait for the Lord. Those words are not just ancient poetry, they are your present command. The waiting has never been wasted. It has been weaponized. Every silent season was sharpening your discernment, teaching you to distinguish God's voice from the noise of your emotions. You learned to rest in the unseen, to walk without visible evidence, to trust when every sign said otherwise. Chosen one. There is divine dignity in waiting. You are learning what kings and prophets once knew, that nothing birthed in haste carries eternal power. God was forming patience within you, not as a weakness, but as a weapon. When others panicked, you prayed. When others demanded answers, you surrendered. And because of that, heaven's timing will soon collide with your obedience. The work behind closed doors is about to be unveiled. But not because you demanded it, because you were ready for it. Readiness is not proven by passion, it is proven by peace. You found peace in the pause, and that was the sign heaven waited for. Now, what was hidden is being positioned for release. You will look back and thank God for every not yet. You will understand that the seeming stillness was strategic. Had you received the promise too soon, it would have crushed you. But now, after the hidden shaping, you will not just receive, you will reign. What heaven has prepared for you was worth every moment of delay. So, rest. Chosen one. The hidden work is almost complete. What was once unseen will soon stand undeniable. And when it does, you will know that every silent prayer, every lonely night, and every closed door were the fingerprints of a faithful God, working in secret, writing a story that only heaven could compose. Chosen one. There was a time when heaven whispered, "Not yet," and it pierced your soul like silence turned into thunder. You asked why others were moving ahead while your feet felt chained to the ground. You questioned if perhaps you had done something wrong, or if the promise had passed you by. But hear me now, divine delays are not denials. They are holy intervals between seed and harvest, between prophecy and manifestation. When heaven says not yet, it is not rejecting you, it is protecting what belongs to you. You have been walking through a season that demanded divine restraint. God had to withhold certain blessings until your spirit was mature enough to handle their weight. The same promise that blesses the prepared can destroy the unready. That's why heaven waited. The delay was not against you, it was for you. You see, the human heart is easily deceived by speed. We think movement means progress. But sometimes movement is merely motion without direction. Heaven values alignment, not acceleration. The not yet moments were God's mercy, slowing your steps to match His rhythm. It wasn't rejection, it was calibration. Every delay kept you from premature exposure, from connections that would have contaminated your calling, and from platforms that could have broken your foundation. Beloved chosen one, if you could glimpse heaven's timeline, you would fall to your knees in gratitude for every divine no, every divine wait. The Lord does not delay as humans do. He orchestrates, What looked like slowness was actually synchronization, God aligning your promise with the precise hour of purpose. When heaven says not yet, it is not withholding, it is preparing. The promise is never lost, it is simply under construction. Every waiting season has its own language, a sacred rhythm known only to those who trust in silence. You were being tested not in your ability to move fast, but in your ability to stay faithful when nothing moved at all. You prayed, God, I'm ready. But heaven knew readiness is not proven by desire, it is proven by discipline. The Lord does not rush his chosen ones because he knows their call carries nations within it. One premature step can ripple through generations. So, he pauses you, molds you, reteaches you, and refines your heart until the weight of glory will not crush you when it arrives. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarries. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay." This ancient truth still echoes for you now. The vision you carry, the dream, the promise, the calling is not dead. It's incubating. Heaven's not yet is simply its way of saying, hold on, I'm perfecting the conditions. Every prayer that felt unanswered was actually being answered through delay. The miracle wasn't denied, it was maturing. Look at your life, the doors that closed, the people who left, the plans that unraveled. Each one was heaven whispering, trust me. Had God said yes too early, the blessing would have found you unprepared. But now, the version of you that's emerging from this delay carries discernment, humility, and authority that could not have been learned in ease. Chosen one. There is a sacred beauty in heaven's not yet. It teaches you to worship without proof, to praise without performance, to love God not for what he gives, but for who he is. That is true faith, the faith that stands even when the winds of waiting howl against your soul. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, in the divine pause between promise and fulfillment. Your patience has been building power. Every day you chose to believe instead of break. Heaven recorded it as obedience. Every tear you shed in surrender was watering the soil of your destiny. The not yet season may have felt endless, but heaven counts time differently. What seems long to you is a blink to eternity. Soon, chosen one, you will understand. You will stand in the place you once cried for and realize that if the door had opened earlier, you wouldn't have been able to sustain it. The delay shaped you into the person who can carry what's coming without losing your peace or your purity. And when the appointed time arrives, and it will, you will not walk through the door trembling. You will walk through it crowned with the confidence of one who has been proven in the waiting. Heaven's not yet will transform into now, and you will recognize that every pause was part of the prophecy. Now, as a prophetic act, comment, I trust you. Say it aloud as your declaration that you understand the power of divine timing. You are not rushing, you are resting. You are not forgotten, you are being prepared. And heaven, oh, heaven is closer than you think. Chosen one. There were seasons when you mistook delay for rejection. The silence felt like abandonment, the closed doors like divine disapproval. You watched opportunities pass by and thought, maybe God has forgotten me. But the truth hidden beneath that pain is far deeper. You were never being rejected, you were being refined. Refinement is the sacred process where heaven shapes the chosen until they resemble purpose more than pain. You were placed in a fire not to be destroyed, but to be purified. What you called rejection was God's way of removing contamination. Every person who walked away was an agent of purification. Every job that slipped through your hands was heaven's act of preservation. Every delay that broke your heart was chiseling away what could not go with you into destiny. The potter never sculpts without pressure. The refining process requires friction, the breaking, the waiting, the silence, the disappointment. Yet, if you could see from heaven's perspective, you would know that those were not losses. They were layers being stripped away to reveal the version of you that can carry glory. You cannot carry divine fire with earthly residue. The waiting burned away what was not aligned with God's design. There were moments when you prayed for deliverance, and heaven instead offered delay. It felt cruel, but it was mercy disguised. Had God released you too soon, your character might not have sustained your calling. There are levels of blessing that demand purified motives and refined hearts. God's no was not rejection. It was a sacred pause that said, "Not until your spirit is strong enough to stand." Chosen one. Your refinement was never random. Every disappointment was divine direction. You were being stretched so your capacity could expand. The tears you cried were not wasted. They were the waters that softened the clay. You may have felt the heat of trials that seemed endless. But remember, gold cannot become radiant until it endures the fire. The greater the calling, the higher the temperature. You were never being punished. You were being purified for purpose. Refinement hurts because it touches what must be surrendered: pride, fear, impatience, the illusion of control. We are reminded through the words of the Apostle Peter in his first letter, chapter 1, verse 7. These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. This is what heaven was doing in you, proving your faith genuine. You did not know it. But angels watched as you stayed faithful when you had every reason to give up. Your endurance became your offering. The fire that surrounded you became the evidence of your transformation. You came out of the furnace not bitter, but brighter, not wounded, but wiser. Do you understand now? The rejections that once felt final were really redirections. Each no was heaven's hand steering you toward alignment. The delay was designed to detach you from what would have diluted your destiny. God refused to let you settle for imitation when He had chosen you for authenticity. You were being refined so that when your moment arrived, you would stand firm, untainted by compromise, untouched by pride. Chosen one. Refinement is a lonely road, but it produces unmatched clarity. The fire stripped away illusions and exposed what was eternal. You began to see which relationships were rooted in purpose and which were anchored in convenience. You learned to stop chasing validation and start seeking revelation. You found strength not in being seen, but in being sustained by grace. Every test you endured built spiritual muscle. Every season of silence taught you to recognize the whisper of God over the noise of your fears. You are no longer the person who started this journey. The delay forged endurance, the rejection birthed resilience, the silence produced wisdom. You have been refined into someone who no longer reacts to delay with despair, but with discernment. And that, beloved, is what it means to be chosen, to be trusted with fire. Heaven never refines what it does not intend to reveal. You were not rejected. You were selected for refinement because God saw something in you that was worth the heat. The same fire that frightened you has now revealed your strength. When the next wave of waiting comes, you will no longer see it as punishment. You will recognize it as process. You will whisper, "I know this fire." And instead of fear, you will feel faith. Because now you understand that every flame has purpose and every delay has design. You are not the victim of divine silence. You are the vessel being sculpted by it. And soon, when the refining is complete, heaven will unveil what it has been forming in secret, a vessel of honor, tested and ready, radiant with the glory of perseverance. You will carry that fire, not as a burden, but as a badge of divine craftsmanship. You were never being rejected, chosen one. You were being prepared for revelation. Chosen one. There are seasons when the weight of waiting feels unbearable. You sit in that spiritual waiting room, watching time move, but feeling as though heaven has paused you. You wonder if anyone sees the battle within your heart, the war between faith and fatigue. Yet even here, in this quiet tension, purpose is being born. The waiting room is not a place of punishment. It is the chamber where power is forged. You see, delay always exposes two things: what you desire most and who you truly trust. When the miracle doesn't come quickly, your soul reveals its allegiance. Will you trust the God of timing or bow to the God of impatience? This is where the chosen are separated from the crowd, in the stillness where trust is tested. You are not forgotten. Chosen one. Heaven has not gone silent to mock you. Heaven has gone silent to mature you. The waiting room is where the shallow voices fade and the deeper voice of God emerges. It is where your prayers shift from, "Lord, give me what I want," to "Lord, make me what you want." It's in this place that your will is broken and your destiny begins to breathe. There is divine weight in waiting. The longer you stay surrendered, the heavier your authority grows. Patience is not passive, it's a posture of power. Every moment of delay is adding spiritual muscle to your spirit. God is teaching you endurance, teaching you to remain steady while the promise matures. When He finally opens the door, you will not run through it in panic, you will walk through it with peace. You must understand. Chosen one, heaven uses delay to build depth. Quick victories make shallow warriors. But those who have waited in faith carry a sound, a certain gravity that cannot be faked. You are being trusted with depth, with the kind of faith that doesn't collapse when the crowd disappears. This faith is the mark of maturity, the sign that your foundation is no longer built on emotion, but on revelation. The Word of God declares in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 4, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That is what this waiting room is doing, finishing the work of perseverance in you. Heaven is not interested in half-built believers. It is crafting completeness. The patience you are learning now will sustain you when the platform appears, when the blessings arrive, when the pressure increases. You are not being delayed, you are being completed. Beloved, even the great ones waited. Joseph sat in prison before the palace. David tended sheep before the throne. Jesus himself lived 30 years in quiet preparation before 3 years of public purpose. The waiting was not wasted, it was essential. Each moment of silence was a setup for strength. And now, heaven is doing the same with you. Every tear you've cried in this waiting room has watered the soil of your destiny. The delay has been the deep breath before the breakthrough. You are learning to rest instead of rush, to trust instead of tremble. Soon, what once felt like stillness will erupt into movement. The things you prayed for will begin to find you, and you will understand why heaven made you wait. So, while you wait, do not despise this room. Worship in it. Learn in it. Become in it. Because when the doors open, and they will, the world will see the fruit of your faithfulness. The delay will make sense. The silence will prove sacred. And chosen one, if these words stir something in your soul, if you feel heaven's whisper reminding you that your waiting is not in vain, take a moment to connect. Like, share, and subscribe, not as an act of routine, but as an act of unity. Every share spreads light into dark corners. Every like tells heaven, I am still waiting with faith. Every subscription anchors you to a flow of messages meant to strengthen you in the days ahead. This isn't about numbers, it's about nourishment. It's about staying connected to the stream of reminders that your story is still being written. You are not alone in this waiting room. Countless other chosen ones are seated beside you in spirit, learning the same holy patience. Together, you are being prepared to rise in divine timing, carrying wisdom that only waiting can teach. Hold on. Heaven has not forgotten. The waiting room is almost over. The door will open, and when it does, you will realize that what God has built in you is far greater than what you thought you lost. Chosen one. Do you remember those nights when heaven felt silent, when prayer seemed to echo into emptiness, and every word fell like a stone into still water? You wondered if God had gone quiet, if perhaps your voice had been lost in the noise of the world. But listen closely. Silence does not mean absence. Heaven speaks most clearly through stillness. What you called quiet was actually divine communication in another language, the language of peace, patience, and process. There are times when God withholds sound so that your spirit can learn to listen. Words can instruct, but silence transforms. The absence of answers trains your heart to hear frequencies. The world cannot detect the whispers of eternity. In that holy quiet, you are not abandoned, you are being attuned. Heaven was not ignoring you. Chosen one, heaven was fine-tuning you to recognize its rhythm. You see, when everything is loud, when everyone is offering advice, when your emotions shout, when fear roars, it becomes impossible to hear truth. So God, in His mercy, pressed pause on the noise. He withdrew His voice from your environment to awaken His voice within you. The silence that surrounded you was heaven's invitation. Be still and know. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. In chapter 33, verse 3, call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. This verse is not just a promise of response, it's a call to intimacy. When God delays the answer, it's because He's drawing you deeper. He's not pushing you away, He's pulling you in. Silence is the sound of invitation. Heaven is saying, stay close, don't move. There's something I must reveal in the quiet. Many cannot endure this part of the process. They run from silence, filling the void with noise, with distraction, with anything to avoid stillness. But not you. You stayed. You waited through the absence, even when your heart ached for clarity. You chose to believe that silence is not rejection, it's revelation waiting to unfold. And because of that faith, heaven is about to reward your patience with prophetic clarity. Chosen one, the silence shaped your spirit. It strengthened your hearing. It purified your motives. You stopped praying for quick answers and started praying for alignment. You learned that sometimes what God doesn't say is as powerful as what He does. Every unanswered question was preparing your discernment. Every quiet season was deepening your understanding of His nature. Do you realize how strong you've become? The one who can hear God in silence will never be deceived by noise. The one who finds peace in stillness will never be shaken by storms. Heaven has trained your ears to recognize whispers, the kind of revelation that can only be heard by those who have endured the quiet furnace of faith. The silence that once frightened you is now your sanctuary. It's the place where the divine and human meet, not through words, but through presence. God was not testing your patience. He was deepening your intimacy. You are no longer chasing His voice like a distant echo. You are walking with it like a companion. There will come a day soon when you will look back and realize that heaven's silence was not empty at all. It was full of guidance, full of love, full of unseen orchestration. The quiet spaces were where God planted understanding so deep that no noise could uproot it. And now, after all this silence, there is a shift. You are about to hear clarity, not from the outside, but from within. The same God who seemed silent is about to speak through your spirit, giving you wisdom beyond your years, discernment beyond your experience, and peace beyond understanding. Do not rush out of the silence just because you are uncomfortable. Stay a little longer. Listen, for in that stillness, the greatest revelations are birthed. Heaven is about to show you that the quiet season was the womb of your next breakthrough. Chosen one, before this message ends, I invite you to seal this truth with a prophetic act. Comment 444 below. Not as superstition, but as a declaration that you understand the holy purpose of silence. The number 4 speaks of foundation, and in this season, God is rebuilding yours upon peace. Not panic, upon stillness. Not striving. By commenting, you are saying, Lord, I receive the strength to rest while you work. Let the silence no longer scare you. Let it sanctify you. You are not being ignored. You are being initiated into a deeper dimension of trust. The stillness that once confused you is the same stillness that will now carry you into divine revelation. Heaven hasn't stopped speaking. It's just been speaking in a language only the patient can understand. Chosen one. Every detour that bewildered you was a disguised doorway. Every rejection that stung was a redirection from heaven. You thought you were being pushed off the path, but in truth, you were being guided toward your true destination, one you could not yet see. God's hand does not always lead in straight lines. Sometimes it curves, conceals, and even confuses, only to later reveal the perfect precision behind every turn. You see, divine navigation often begins with divine interruption. When things didn't go as you planned, it wasn't failure, it was rerouting. Heaven was closing counterfeit doors to keep you from counterfeit destinations. The places you thought were opportunities were merely illusions, distractions meant to dilute your focus and divide your purpose. God, in His mercy, stepped in to realign you with your true course. There were moments when you cried, "Why did that end? Why did they leave? Why did it fall apart?" But the truth is, some doors are designed to close before they destroy you. Not every open door is divine. And not every closed door is cruel. The same God who opens paths through seas also builds walls where you should not pass. What felt like loss was the voice of heaven whispering, "This is not your way." Chosen one. The divine path is hidden not because God wants to confuse you, but because he wants to protect you from running ahead of him. If you saw everything at once, you would try to control the outcome. So instead, he reveals one step at a time, enough to move forward, but not enough to boast. Every delay, every no, every unexpected detour is part of a divine choreography that ensures you arrive at the right place, at the right time, with the right heart. It is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." This truth is not a restraint, it's liberation. You are free from the burden of knowing every detail. You are free from the illusion of control. You are free to trust that even when the route changes, the destination remains divine. The road may twist, but the promise remains straight. Heaven is your compass, not your circumstance. You've walked through seasons where every direction seemed uncertain, yet something in your spirit refused to let you quit. That something, that quiet persistence, was the Spirit of God, guiding your every move. He was rerouting your steps away from destruction and toward destiny. You didn't miss your turn, you simply took the road less visible. The narrow path always appears lonely before it reveals its reward. There were people you thought you needed, those who promised loyalty, those who seemed essential to your journey, but when they left, the road became clearer. Their departure wasn't your downfall, it was your deliverance. You see, not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Some were only assigned to teach you discernment, not to share your destination. Even your failures, chosen one, were part of the navigation. You stumbled, yes, but heaven used even your missteps as course corrections. Every mistake that humbled you became a compass that turned you closer to truth. God wastes nothing, not your pain, not your confusion, not your detours. Everything is absorbed into the orchestration of his will. You are learning now that divine direction rarely makes sense in the moment. The path of obedience is often paved with unanswered questions. But faith doesn't need explanations, it needs endurance. And you, through all the delays and detours, have proven you possess both. Heaven trusted you with uncertainty because heaven knew you would keep walking even when the way was hidden. So now, look again at what seemed like loss. Those moments of redirection were not evidence of failure, they were signs of favor. You are walking a path that few understand, a path marked not by ease, but by eternal purpose. The rejection that once hurt will soon reveal itself as your protection. The confusion that once clouded your vision will soon give way to clarity. Chosen one. The map of your life is divine. What looks like random steps are divine coordinates leading you to promise. The locked doors were never meant to trap you. They were meant to point you toward the open ones that were truly yours. And when you finally reach them, when you stand in the place that was always meant for you, you will say, "Now I see." Every detour was destiny in disguise. Walk forward now with steady faith. You do not need to see the full picture, you only need to trust the painter. The brushstrokes of heaven are rarely predictable, but always perfect. The path ahead may twist, but it leads straight into glory. You have not been wandering, you have been guided. And one day soon, you will realize that every hidden key, every disguised door, every unexpected turn was part of heaven's flawless design to lead you home. Chosen one. There were seasons when the fire around you burned hotter than you thought you could bear. You cried out for relief, yet the flames only intensified. You wondered if God had abandoned you in the furnace. But hear this truth now: your faith was never meant to stay untested. It had to be proved through fire, not to inform God of your strength, but to reveal it to you. Every chosen vessel must pass through a season where belief is no longer a concept, but a crucible. The promises spoken over your life were not meant to float in comfort. They were designed to survive in pressure. The fire you faced was not destruction, it was definition. It stripped away the fragile parts of your trust and left behind something unbreakable. When your faith came under fire, heaven was not punishing you, heaven was promoting you. The greater the calling, the greater the refining. The tests you endured were tailor-made to fortify your spirit. You were never being reduced, you were being reinforced. You were learning that faith is not proven by what you escape, but by what you endure without losing your worship. There were moments when the heat was relentless, when every day felt like a battle between promise and pain. Yet even then, you stood, you wept. Yes, but you didn't walk away. You questioned, but you didn't quit. You felt fear, but faith kept flickering beneath the ashes. That flicker, small as it seemed, was enough to summon heaven's favor. The voice of God thundered in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. This verse is not poetic comfort, it is a divine guarantee. The same God who allowed the furnace also controlled its temperature. The flames were permitted, but not to destroy you, only to purify. Every trial was measured, every hardship timed. Heaven ensured that no fire would burn longer than necessary. You must understand, chosen one, the testing of your faith was never random. Fire separates imitation from authenticity. It reveals the difference between borrowed belief and personal conviction. You are emerging from this season carrying faith that is fully yours, no longer inherited, no longer theoretical. This kind of faith cannot be shaken by circumstance, because it was forged in adversity. There were people who watched you walk through the flames and expected you to collapse. They saw you lose things, suffer loss, and face storms that would have silenced others. Yet somehow, you remained. You didn't come out untouched, but you came out transformed. You no longer seek comfort, you seek calling. You no longer crave approval, you crave alignment. That's what the fire did. It refined your desires until only purpose remained. When faith is under fire, two things happen. First, what is fake burns away. Second, what is real shines brighter. The pressure you faced revealed strength that had been hidden beneath layers of doubt. You learned to pray differently, not for escape, but for endurance. You discovered that victory isn't always the absence of battle. Sometimes, it's the ability to stand in the midst of one. Chosen one. The furnace did not deform you, it defined you. The trials that nearly broke you became the blueprint for your authority. You can now speak peace to others because you've wrestled with chaos and survived. You can now extend compassion because you've known crushing pain and found grace in the ashes. The scars you carry are not signs of defeat, they are evidence of endurance. And even now, heaven looks upon you with pride. Angels witnessed your resilience when no one else did. The same faith that trembled at the start now stands firm like iron. What once felt like torment has turned into testimony. The very things that tested you are now the things that will testify through you. Do not despise the fire. Beloved, without it, the gold within you would have remained hidden. The brilliance now radiating from your life is the light that can only emerge from refinement. You are not a survivor of storms, you are a steward of strength. Every flame that touched you has bowed to divine control, and every tear that fell has been counted as worship. The testing of your faith was not the end of your story, it was the unveiling of it. You are stepping out of the furnace not smelling of smoke, but glowing with glory. The world will see your endurance and know this one was chosen, refined, and approved by heaven. So stand tall now. Chosen one, the fire has done its work. You are proof that faith under pressure does not perish, it prevails. And from this moment forward, the heat that once threatened to consume you will only illuminate the radiance of your divine calling. Chosen one, there was a precise moment when heaven pressed pause on the flow of time. You didn't see it, but everything around you shifted. The unseen clock of eternity stopped just long enough for mercy to intervene. What you called a delay was actually divine restraint, God holding back what could have hurt you before its appointed hour. You were not ready for what you asked for then, and heaven loved you enough to wait. God does not measure readiness by desire but by depth. When your character hadn't yet caught up to your calling, heaven froze the moment. You felt the stillness as silence, but it was actually protection in progress. The pause was not punishment, it was preservation. Beloved, heaven's timing is a mystery to the flesh, but perfection to the spirit. The reason some doors stayed locked wasn't because you lacked faith, it was because you carried favor too great to be wasted on the wrong season. God withheld access until the environment could honor the anointing He placed upon you. He refused to let your promise be mishandled by unprepared hands. You must understand, the pause of heaven is not the absence of movement, it is the redirection of motion. Heaven was aligning people, places, and purposes to intersect with your obedience. At the exact moment, grace would meet glory. That's why certain things couldn't happen sooner. The divine script had to unfold scene by scene, word by word, until your role was refined enough to handle the weight of fulfillment. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, still echo today. We know that all things work together for good to those who love God, who are called by Him. Every not yet was working together with every yes you couldn't yet see. The pauses, the detours, the silent nights, they were all part of a divine equation that equals perfect timing. Heaven paused the clock because destiny was catching up to you. Your steps were not slow, they were synchronized. Chosen one, think back to those moments when you felt forgotten. Heaven was actually busy behind the curtain, rearranging destinies, removing distractions, and reweaving your surroundings. The people who left, the opportunities that fell apart, they weren't accidents, they were necessary edits in the masterpiece being composed with your life. You were never standing still. You were being positioned. There were days when you begged God to move faster, when your impatience boiled into tears, yet even then, heaven whispered, "Wait." You didn't realize that a hasty yes can destroy a holy destiny. Some prayers, if answered too early, would have turned blessings into burdens. The pause was mercy's disguise, divine delay, preserving divine order. And now, something sacred is shifting again. The same clock that once stood still is beginning to turn. The gears of heaven are moving, slowly but surely. What once felt frozen is being thawed by the fire of God's timing. The stillness that once surrounded you is breaking into motion. But this time, you're ready. The pause has done its work. The waiting has matured your vision. You can now discern what's holy from what's hollow, what's divine from what's deceptive. Chosen one, when heaven pauses time, it's because purpose must be perfected. Your waiting was not wasted, it was working. You are now aligned with heaven's calendar, standing on the edge of manifestation. The plans that once confused you will soon confirm you. The delay that once frustrated you will soon favor you. You must remember, divine pauses are not random interruptions. They are heaven's highest form of precision. God is never late, he is exact. The pause that once tested your patience will soon become your testimony. And in this very moment, heaven is breathing again over what looked like silence. You may not see it, but the pause is lifting. The unseen clock begins to tick once more. And with every beat, the fulfillment draws closer. Chosen one, take a breath and honor the divine pause that shaped you. Without it, you would have rushed into ruin. With it, you gained revelation. The waiting didn't weaken you, it welded strength into your soul. Now, when the promise unfolds, you will recognize its sacred worth because you've paid the price of patience. Before this section closes, I invite you to seal this revelation with faith. Comment, "Time moves." Say it not as a demand, but as a declaration that you trust heaven's rhythm more than your own rush. Let it be your way of saying, "God, I yield my timing to yours," because the same hand that paused the clock is now pressing play. And this time, nothing will stop what has been divinely scheduled. The pause was purposeful. Chosen one. And the next sound you'll hear in your spirit is the ticking of fulfillment, steady, certain, unstoppable. Heaven's timing is about to meet your obedience. Chosen one, take a deep breath. Everything that has felt delayed, stretched, or suspended is coming into alignment. The pieces that once seemed scattered are quietly finding their place. Heaven's timing has never failed. It simply doesn't conform to human clocks. You have been walking according to a divine calendar, one written long before you took your first breath. What feels like waiting to you is perfect synchronization to heaven. Every sunrise you thought was ordinary was actually marking prophetic progress. God does not measure time in minutes and months, he measures it in maturity. When your spirit was ready, heaven began to move. There are realms of blessing that can only be released when obedience reaches full bloom. You are there now, on the edge of that divine intersection where your preparation meets his promise. Heaven's calendar is never late. You have been on schedule the entire time, even when your emotions screamed otherwise. The enemy tried to convince you that you missed your moment, that others had taken what was yours. But hear this truth: nothing truly ordained for you can ever be taken from you. Delay is not loss. Delay is protection, precision, and preparation wrapped in patience. Beloved, you serve a God who operates outside of time, yet controls it completely. While you looked at the clock, he looked at the heart. When the appointed hour arrives, no opposition, no mistake, and no demonic interference can stop what heaven has decreed. The same God who spoke galaxies into motion has spoken over your life, and his word will not return empty. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." These words are not ancient poetry, they are divine law. Every purpose has its hour. Every calling has its moment. You are stepping into yours. The timing that once felt cruel will soon prove kind. The doors that refused to open before will now swing wide with ease. Not because you forced them, but because heaven's key finally turned. Chosen one. When God says, "Now," everything changes. Delays break. Alignments form, and acceleration begins. You will notice it first in small ways, a sense of peace returning, unexpected favor unfolding, divine connections reappearing. That is how heaven signals the turning of a new time. The same clock that once seemed frozen is now ticking with purpose again. Your obedience has activated the next chapter. Heaven rewards faith that waits well. You did not curse the process, you endured it. You didn't rush ahead, you stayed rooted. And because you trusted in the slowness of God, you will now move in the speed of grace. Divine acceleration does not need your striving, it needs your surrender. What took others years to build, you will see appear in months. What once resisted you will now recognize you. There is something beautiful about divine timing. It humbles you and honors you at the same time. You had to learn patience to receive what lasts. God never wanted you to chase fleeting blessings. He wanted you to carry eternal ones. You now walk in wisdom, born of waiting. And that wisdom is what will preserve your promise once it manifests. Chosen one, I want you to pause and feel this truth. The wait was worth it. Heaven's later is always better than man's now. You have matured beyond desperation. You are stepping into divine rhythm, where every delay dances into perfect timing. When you finally stand in what you once prayed for, your first response won't be pride, it will be tears of understanding. You'll realize that every slow season was grace holding you steady until glory was ready. And as you stand at this threshold between waiting and fulfillment, I want to speak to your heart gently. This journey has not been just about you, it's been about others watching your endurance. Your faith has been a message in motion. Every person who doubted your process will soon witness your purpose. When that happens, don't boast, bless. Let your victory point upward, not inward. If these words resonate with your spirit, if you feel heaven's clock begin to move in your favor, take a moment to respond in faith. Like, share, and subscribe, not for attention, but for alignment. Every like is a silent amen. Every share is a seed of encouragement. And every subscription connects you to continual reminders that God's timing is still perfect. This community exists to keep chosen ones anchored in faith while heaven works unseen. You've waited long, but not in vain. The next chapter is not a repeat of the last, it's a reward. Stay watchful. Heaven's calendar is turning a new page for you. And when it does, everything that once felt delayed will suddenly make divine sense. Chosen one, your time has come. The clock of heaven has struck your appointed hour. Walk forward, not in hurry, but in harmony with the one who holds time in his hands. Chosen one, the moment heaven begins to unveil the reason behind your waiting, something shifts deep within you. The frustration that once clouded your heart starts to melt into understanding. The pieces begin to connect, and suddenly you realize that every unanswered prayer, every delay, and every detour had purpose stitched through it. The reveal begins not as a loud announcement, but as a quiet realization that everything was always under control. The same moments that once made you cry now make you bow. The same roads you thought were wrong turns are now revealed as necessary paths. Heaven never wasted a single step of your journey. Each delay, each disappointment, each pause was a thread woven into a tapestry only God could design. What looked fragmented now reveals divine symmetry. The truth is, revelation rarely comes during the noise. It comes in the aftermath, after the storm, after the silence, after the surrender. You couldn't understand the delay while you were inside it, because revelation requires elevation. Only once you are lifted above the chaos can you see the purpose that hid within it. You are seeing it now, aren't you? The moments of isolation were not punishments, they were invitations. Heaven was pulling you away from distractions, so you could hear what was never meant to be shouted, the whisper of destiny. You were being trained to recognize the sound of divine direction without the aid of human affirmation. The Spirit of God spoke through the Apostle Paul. In the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." These words are not mere encouragement, they are explanation. The delays were producing something eternal in you. The troubles were weight training for glory. You were being stretched so you could carry more light. The waiting built spiritual muscle that comfort could never provide. Chosen one. Revelation always arrives wrapped in reflection. You are beginning to understand that what hurt you most also healed you best. You see now how heaven used disappointment to detach you from what was temporary and anchor you to what is eternal. The delays you resented have become the teachers you respect. Each one whispered, "Not yet," because you're not done becoming. You now recognize that God's silence was strategy. His withholding was wisdom. The doors that refused to open were never yours to walk through, and the ones that stayed locked preserved your purity, your peace, and your prophetic future. If you had forced them, they would have crushed you. What you called setback was actually setup. You have learned to look at delay differently. You used to see it as distance from destiny. Now you know it was the drawing near of divine purpose. Heaven was preparing the stage, placing every piece of your life in order so that when revelation arrived, nothing would be missing, nothing wasted, nothing out of place. Beloved, do you remember the moments when you almost gave up? Heaven does. Those were the moments when angels stood at attention, whispering strength into your weary spirit. You may not have seen them, but you felt that strange calm after the tears, that unexplainable peace that told you, keep going. That was heaven sustaining you through the final stretch of delay so that you could reach this moment of divine understanding. The reveal is not only external, it's internal. You are discovering who you truly are, not the one who waits in despair, but the one who walks by faith. Your patience has evolved into perception. You can now discern movement even in stillness, purpose even in pain. What others call confusion, you now recognize as construction. And when you begin to see like this, peace settles over you. You no longer chase signs, you rest in surrender. You no longer need to demand explanations, because you trust the one writing the story. This is what revelation does. It replaces resentment with reverence. Chosen one. God is unveiling the why, not because you demanded it, but because you're ready for it. He doesn't explain process to those still wrestling with pride or panic. He reveals purpose to those who have proven faithfulness in the unseen. You waited, not perfectly, but persistently, and that persistence has opened heaven's understanding. You will soon stand in a place that makes sense of your pain. The very doors that stayed closed will now reveal the protection behind them. The tears that once felt wasted will now water testimonies that bless others. You will see how divine timing guarded your growth, and you will realize nothing was random, and nothing was late. Chosen one. This is the unveiling of your becoming. The light that once seemed far away now shines from within you. You carry wisdom carved from waiting, strength refined in fire, and peace that passes understanding. The reveal is not just what God was doing for you, it's who you became while He was doing it. Stand still for a moment and let that truth wash over you. The delay was necessary. The silence was sacred. And the revelation is now here in your understanding, in your spirit, in your strength. What was hidden has been revealed, and what was lost has been redeemed. Chosen one. For so long, you mistook your hiddenness for being forgotten. You thought your invisibility meant irrelevance, that heaven had moved on and left you behind. But the truth you are about to see is this: you were never forgotten, you were hidden for impact. The quiet seasons, the years without recognition, the spaces where no one noticed your faithfulness, those were not wasted years. They were years of divine preservation. God hides what He values most. Diamonds form in darkness. Seeds grow underground. The Messiah Himself lived 3 decades in obscurity before 3 years of destiny. So, when heaven concealed you, it wasn't rejection, it was protection. You were being prepared for a release that could not happen until your roots were deep enough to sustain the weight of your calling. The world equates visibility with value, but heaven never does. Heaven values preparation over presentation. It was in the hidden place that your heart was purified, your motives refined, and your faith strengthened. Every unseen act of obedience, every silent prayer, every moment you chose integrity over attention, heaven recorded it. The silence was not empty, it was sacred. You see now that your hiddenness was holy. You were like an arrow pulled back. The tension and delay were not to restrain you, but to launch you farther than you could have gone on your own. Heaven hides those it intends to elevate. When the moment of release comes, it is not a gradual rise, it is sudden, supernatural acceleration. According to what is revealed in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This is heaven's promise to you. The hidden prayers will produce visible breakthroughs. The secret faith will result in public favor. You were not buried, you were planted. The soil of silence was nurturing something powerful within you. When God finally uncovers you, you will not emerge empty, you will emerge equipped. Chosen one. Reflect on how the silence shaped you. You learned to find peace without applause. You learned to move without validation. You discovered that your value does not depend on being seen, but on being sent. Heaven uses hiddenness to strip away performance so that what remains is authenticity. The person stepping out of obscurity now is stronger, wiser, and anchored in truth. You must understand, being hidden was not delay, it was design. If God had revealed you before your roots were ready, success would have shattered you. But now, what was meant to protect you will propel you. The years of hidden growth have created stability that fame cannot corrupt. The same obscurity that once frustrated you will now become your foundation of humility. When God hides you, He is also hiding you from counterfeit crowns. The enemy cannot attack what he cannot see. Your quiet season was camouflage, a shield against distractions that would have derailed your destiny. You were being tucked beneath the wings of grace until it was safe to rise. Chosen one, the world is about to see what heaven has been shaping in secret. The fruit of your hidden years will begin to show, not to glorify you, but to glorify the one who sustained you when no one was watching. The unseen battles you fought have birthed unseen victories that now radiate from your life. You carry a depth that cannot be taught. It can only be formed through hidden seasons. Soon, your name will begin to echo in spaces you've never entered. Opportunities will align with precision. People will say, "Where did they come from?" And heaven will smile, because it knows you didn't come from nowhere, you came from the secret place. Every invisible moment was the birthplace of the visible miracle. But remember this when the spotlight comes. Stay small in your spirit. The same humility that sustained you in hiding will preserve you in honor. Do not chase applause, chase assignment. Do not seek visibility, seek vision. The moment you forget the value of the secret place, the light that once revealed you will begin to consume you. Stay anchored in the hidden habits that birthed your strength. Now, chosen one, before this word concludes, mark this moment of emergence with faith. Comment 555 below as a prophetic declaration that you are ready to rise, not in pride, but in purpose. The number 5 represents grace, and triple grace means divine completion and empowerment. By commenting, you are saying, "Lord, thank you for hiding me until I was ready. And now release me when it pleases you." This is not the end of your hiddenness, it's the beginning of your unveiling. What was done in secret will soon shine in the open. The world will see the fruit. But only you and heaven will know the cost. The soil that once concealed you will now testify of what it held. So stand tall. Chosen one, the hidden one is rising. The unseen season is over. Heaven has deemed you ready. And when the world finally notices, you'll smile, not for fame, but for faithfulness. Because you'll know the truth, obscurity was never your enemy. It was your anointing in disguise. Chosen one, the time has come when what was lost begins to return, but not as it left you. Everything that slipped from your grasp during the seasons of delay is returning refined, multiplied, and sanctified. You are stepping into a chapter called restoration. Heaven never forgets what has been surrendered in faith. Every tear, every sacrifice, every yes spoken in weakness has been accounted for. The God who allowed loss is the same God who promises recompense. You are about to see the beauty of divine arithmetic, where subtraction becomes multiplication, and delay births abundance. The years that felt empty were not erased, they were invested. Heaven stores what you thought you lost and releases it in fullness when your character can sustain it. The restoration that comes after waiting is never a simple return. It's a resurrection. We are reminded through the writings of the prophet Joel. In chapter 2, verse 25, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." This is not poetic comfort, it is divine law. Heaven does not just return what was taken, it redeems the time that was stolen. You will not merely receive back possessions, relationships, or opportunities. You will recover time itself. The seasons you thought were wasted will now yield supernatural harvest. God's restoration operates beyond fairness. It moves in favor. Chosen one. Look closely. The restoration has already begun, not through sudden blessings, but through renewed strength. The first thing God restores is not what you lost, but who you are. Before He returns what left your hands, He restores what left your heart joy, hope, confidence, peace. Those inner restorations prepare you for the outer ones. You may not even realize it yet, but your laughter has started to return in quiet moments. The heaviness that once clung to your spirit has started to lift. The small glimpses of peace you've been feeling, those are signs of divine repair. Heaven begins its rebuilding, not with visible signs, but with invisible stability. There is a sacred sequence to restoration. First, God restores your faith. Then, He restores your function. Finally, He restores your fruit. This process ensures that what you gain now will not be lost again. You are no longer the version of yourself that lost things through fear or haste. You have been transformed into one who can carry blessings without being consumed by them. Do you remember the prayers you prayed in your pain, the ones you whispered when your heart felt empty and your spirit weary? Heaven heard every word. Restoration is heaven's way of answering in ways you never imagined. You thought you were asking for recovery, but God was preparing resurrection, a return that carries resurrection power. Chosen one. The same hand that allowed things to be stripped is the same hand now returning them. Sanctified and multiplied. Relationships that ended will be replaced by divine connections. Opportunities that dissolved will be reborn in better forms. Dreams that seemed to die will awaken stronger and purer. What is returning to you will not resemble what left, because the process purified both you and the promise. You will notice that restoration doesn't arrive with noise or announcement. It arrives with peace. The same situations that once broke you will now bless you. And you will feel no bitterness, only gratitude. That's how you'll know the healing is real. When God restores, He doesn't just give you what was lost, He also erases the pain of losing it. Heaven restores differently than the world. The world gives compensation. Heaven gives transformation. The restoration of God isn't about replacing, it's about redeeming. You are stepping into a season where everything that once caused sorrow will now produce strength. The very soil of your suffering is where new joy will bloom. Chosen one. Restoration is not always immediate. Sometimes it unfolds like dawn, slowly, softly, steadily. The light returns. You wake up one day and realize that the ache is gone. The hope is alive, and the vision is clear again. That's when you know restoration has taken root. You are being trusted with abundance again, but this time your hands are steadier. You no longer hold blessings with fear, you hold them with wisdom. The years of loss taught you stewardship. You have learned that everything you have is sacred, that blessings are borrowed from heaven to be used for purpose. When restoration fully blooms, remember this: it was never about getting back what was lost. It was always about becoming who you were meant to be through the process. The restored version of you is not a replica of the old, it's a revelation of the refined. You have become the fulfillment of what your pain was prophesying. Chosen one. Heaven is balancing the scales. Every silent season will now echo with reward. The waiting room becomes the birthing room. What was delayed has matured. What was broken is being rebuilt. And when the restoration is complete, you will look around and say, I see now nothing was wasted. So rest in this truth, the God who restores has already begun his work. Every loss was a lesson, every tear a seed, every delay a deposit. You are standing in the field of fulfillment, watching the harvest rise from the soil of your endurance. The restoration has begun, and it will not stop until every promise is complete. Chosen one. There is a sacred shift taking place, one that you can feel in your spirit before you see it in the natural. After the seasons of waiting, the refining, and the silence, the rhythm of heaven begins to quicken. What once moved slowly now begins to align suddenly. This is prophetic acceleration, not chaos, but divine convergence, where everything that was delayed begins to catch up at the same time. You have entered a moment when heaven begins to compress time. Years of hidden growth and unseen prayer are now being condensed into days of visible breakthrough. The Lord is not merely returning what was lost, he is accelerating what was promised. The seeds that lay dormant in the soil of your obedience are now sprouting all at once. It will feel overwhelming, but it will not be too much. Grace will match the speed of glory. The Spirit declares through the prophet Amos, in chapter 9, verse 13, the days are coming when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman, and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. This verse speaks of divine momentum, moments when blessings chase obedience faster than you can comprehend. The same field that once looked barren now overflows. What once took years will happen in moments, not because you worked harder, but because heaven has deemed the time ripe. Chosen one. Acceleration always follows alignment. God waited until your heart, habits, and humility aligned perfectly with his design. He could not release this season of movement until your spirit was anchored enough not to drift with the wind. Now that you are steady, he can send speed. Acceleration without maturity leads to collapse, but acceleration after refinement leads to completion. In this divine momentum, you must remain grounded. Acceleration is not about frenzy, it's about flow. The same patience that carried you through the waiting will now preserve you through the increase. Do not mistake speed for pressure. What is coming will move quickly, but peacefully. Heaven never rushes, it releases. The shifts will begin subtly, a conversation that opens an unexpected door, a sudden opportunity that feels like destiny in disguise, a connection that carries divine weight. Pay attention, not to the noise, but to the nudges. The same voice that once said, wait, is now saying move. You are being ushered into fulfillment, but you must walk in wisdom. Chosen one. Acceleration is not just external, it's internal. The understanding you once struggled to grasp will now unfold easily. Revelation will come rapidly, as if heaven is unlocking hidden knowledge that was always meant for you. You will sense clarity where confusion once lived. Ideas will form faster. Prayers will be answered quicker. And grace will multiply effortlessly. The pace of heaven is overtaking the pace of your pain. You are now living in the in-between, the narrow space where the past still echoes, but the future begins to roar. The delay has expired, and what was once restrained is being released. You will recognize this acceleration by the ease of it. What used to require striving will now require surrender. The same doors you knocked on before will now open on their own, because it is time. Chosen one, understand this clearly. Prophetic acceleration is not luck. It is the divine response to long obedience. You were faithful when it was unseen, steadfast when it was silent. And now heaven rewards faith that did not faint. You sowed tears in slow seasons. Now you will reap joy in swift seasons. The pace may change, but the purpose remains the same, to glorify the one who authored your story. Do not lose sight of that. When everything starts to align, when blessings begin to multiply, when recognition comes from unexpected places, remember, acceleration is an assignment, not applause. Heaven is moving you faster so that purpose can spread wider. The enemy will try to confuse this acceleration with chaos, but you will know the difference. Chaos drains, but acceleration sustains. Chaos scatters, but acceleration gathers. The peace that accompanies this speed will be your confirmation. What is of God will not demand striving, it will demand surrender. And while everything quickens around you, remember to remain slow in your spirit, steady, humble, grateful. Acceleration is not meant to pull you out of intimacy, but to draw you deeper into dependence. The faster things move, the more still your heart must remain. You are not running ahead of God, you are moving in rhythm with Him. Chosen one, your name has reached its appointed moment in heaven's order. The delays that once restrained you were the same forces, ensuring that your timing would align with divine fulfillment. Now, the divine clock ticks faster, and what was promised begins to manifest in waves. Every slow season becomes fuel for the swift one. This is your turning point, where patience meets promise, and waiting meets wonder. Everything that felt stuck begins to surge. The words spoken over your life are coming alive. You are stepping into prophetic acceleration, not because you chased it, but because you were faithful enough to be found ready. Move forward in peace. Heaven's timing has quickened, and you are walking in perfect step with it. The waiting has ended, the movement has begun, and soon you will realize that what once took years of endurance can be completed in moments of grace. Chosen one, after all the pauses, fires, and tears, you now stand in a season where delay has transformed into dominion. What once restrained you has now become your realm of authority. The very ground that held you captive is now the ground you walk upon as conqueror. You have passed through the wilderness, and heaven has marked you with the oil of overcoming. Dominion does not begin when circumstances change, it begins when your spirit does. You once prayed for deliverance, but God was developing dominion within you. He didn't just want to rescue you from opposition, He wanted to make you master over it. You no longer react to darkness, you command light. The authority you now carry was not gifted cheaply, it was earned through endurance. Chosen one, this is where waiting becomes ruling. The patience that once felt like chains has become your crown. You've learned that power without humility is poison. So, heaven allowed time to temper your authority with compassion. You are not emerging as a ruler who boasts, but as one who carries tenderness with strength, a warrior with wisdom, a leader with love. It is written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19, "Behold, I give you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy." This promise is not poetic, it is practical. Dominion is your inheritance. You have been entrusted with the power to stand firm where others fell, to bring peace into chaos, and to speak restoration where despair once ruled. The authority of heaven rests upon those who have proven faithful in obscurity, and you, chosen one, have been found faithful. Every storm that once intimidated you has now become your training ground. The fire that threatened to consume you has only confirmed your strength. What used to break you now bows before you. This is what it means to walk in dominion, not to control life, but to conquer fear, to remain unmoved while the winds howl, to declare peace and see it manifest because your spirit no longer trembles beneath the weight of uncertainty. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. You are orchestrating them with prayer, purpose, and prophetic authority. Heaven has shifted your position from student to steward. You don't just receive instruction, you carry influence. You've been anointed to shift atmospheres, to break cycles, to speak life into places others have given up on. Dominion isn't about pride, it's about partnership with heaven's will. Chosen one. Understand this dominion does not mean comfort, it means calling. You are now accountable for the authority you carry. The anointing on your life is not meant to elevate ego, but to extend grace. You will find that the higher you rise, the more humility heaven requires. For the one who holds the crown must also hold the towel, willing to serve even while standing in power. Every trial that once weakened you was actually heaven's boot camp. You were learning how to rule without arrogance, how to lead without losing compassion. The lessons that once stung are now your weapons. You can recognize deception quicker, discern motives sharper, and walk with clarity that only fire could forge. Dominion is not about being untouchable, it's about being unshakable. And now, heaven watches with joy as you step into this season of strength. Angels that once shielded you in weakness now walk beside you in witness. The same God who hid you in the cave is now revealing you on the mountaintop. The light that once frightened you is now your assignment to shine boldly, yet humbly, for others still trapped in delay. If these words resonate within you, if something in your spirit says, "Yes, this is my moment to stand," then respond with faith. Like, share, and subscribe, not out of habit, but out of harmony with this message. Each like becomes an echo of gratitude. Each share becomes a seed of encouragement for another weary soul. Each subscription becomes a tether to this flow of divine strength, a way to stay anchored in the continual reminders of purpose and power. And when you finish reading, leave a comment, a line from your heart, a word of recognition, a testimony of what you've overcome. Your words are not small, they are declarations. They ripple through this space as light, reaching others who feel forgotten in their waiting. Your story strengthens more than you know. Chosen one, this is your hour of dominion. Walk with gentleness, but speak with authority. Let humility guard your crown and compassion guide your hand. The throne you now sit on is not made of gold, but of grace, forged by tears, polished by perseverance, and set in place by divine timing. You did not chase dominion, you grew into it. And now heaven says, rule well. Chosen one, There is a sacred moment that arrives quietly, the moment heaven crowns you, not with visible gold, but with invisible glory. It doesn't happen with applause or spectacle. It happens in the stillness after the struggle. When heaven places honor upon those who remained faithful when no one was watching. The crown is not a symbol of arrival, it is the evidence of endurance. You have walked through waiting, silence, fire, loss, and refining. You have learned obedience through pain and worship through uncertainty. The crown you now receive is not given to the perfect, it is given to the persevering. Heaven crowns those who do not quit when the world grows quiet. It is the silent coronation of the steadfast. Chosen one. Your crowning moment is not about status, it is about stewardship. You are being entrusted with influence, responsibility, and authority in realms you once only dreamed of. The same battles that once drained you have now qualified you. Heaven is saying, you have proven trustworthy with little, now you will be trusted with much. It is written in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8. Now there is stored up for me the crown of righteousness, which the righteous judge will give to all. This crown is not a decoration, it is a declaration. It says that your faith remained intact despite the flame. It proclaims that your endurance was not in vain. Every trial, every delay, every moment of unseen faithfulness was heaven preparing you for this unveiling. The same hands that held you in hiding are now placing the crown of purpose upon your head. But remember, chosen one, the crown is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of responsibility. Crowns do not exist for comfort, they exist for calling. When God crowns you, He also commissions you. He doesn't elevate you to sit higher than others, He raises you to lift others. The true sign of your crowning is not how many bow to you, but how many you kneel to serve. The weight of the crown is real. It carries expectations, tests, and unseen burdens. Many envy the visible glow of glory, but few understand its gravity. The greater the light, the heavier the shadow. This is why your humility must remain deeper than your rise. The higher God takes you, the lower your posture must stay. The crown is only safe on a bowed head. You may find that this new season comes with both favor and friction. Some will celebrate your emergence, others will misunderstand it. But do not shrink back to make others comfortable. Your rise was not meant to be hidden. You are the evidence of endurance, a living testimony that obedience produces elevation. Heaven is not placing you above others, but before them as a sign of what faithfulness births. Chosen one. When the Lord crowns you, He marks you. You become a vessel through which His glory shines. It will draw attention. Yes, but that attention must always point back to Him. Let your success become a sermon. Let your peace become a prophecy. Let your humility be the fragrance that confirms heaven's touch upon you. This crown also carries memory. It reminds you of where you came from, of the deserts you crossed, the nights you wept, the prayers that felt unanswered. You will look at your new opportunities and remember the cave where you first whispered, "Lord, I'll still trust you." Never forget that the glory you carry was born in the ground of grief. The crown glitters, but it's forged from pain. You are entering a realm where favor will accelerate. Doors will open easily, and influence will increase. But the greater victory is not in what you gain, it's in who you've become. The one who now wears the crown no longer craves validation. You are secure in God's timing, grounded in His truth, and guided by His presence. The crown sits not on pride, but on peace. Chosen one, lift your head not in arrogance, but in awareness. Heaven has crowned you because you've proven faithful. Wear it with reverence. Walk with wisdom. Speak with grace. Let your life reflect the royalty of righteousness, not in grandeur, but in gentleness. You are a crowned servant, powerful, yet humble, visible, yet hidden in God. Your coronation was quiet, but its impact will echo loudly. The same angels that once guarded your process now celebrate your promotion. The same heavens that once held you in waiting now declare your unveiling. The crown is the culmination of endurance, the seal of divine trust, and the symbol of heaven's well done. So walk forward, crowned but careful, radiant yet rooted. You are no longer in preparation, you are in purpose. And as you move through this next chapter, let every step testify that the waiting was worth it. The fire was necessary, and the crown, this invisible, eternal crown, was always your destiny. Chosen one, now that you have walked through the waiting, endured the refining, and received the crown, heaven begins to bring your story full circle. This is the moment when everything starts to make divine sense, the why behind every delay, every closed door, every heartbreak. You finally see what heaven was orchestrating all along. What once seemed disconnected now forms a perfect pattern. The full revelation of divine delay is unfolding before your eyes. You were never wandering aimlessly. You were being woven into destiny. The slow seasons were not wasted time, but sacred timing. The suffering that felt senseless was actually sculpting you into someone who could carry the magnitude of your calling. You see now that if any part of your process had been shortened, the strength within you would not have been complete. God never withheld, He prepared. Every unanswered prayer was a thread, every setback a stitch, every tear a drop of divine ink writing your testimony. What you lived was not punishment, it was preparation. The delay was the method heaven used to create durability in your spirit. You are not just chosen, you are crafted. Every moment, even the painful ones, was written with intentional precision by the author of time himself. As the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Those words are the closing melody of your waiting season, the good work that began in you through the delays, detours, and depths is now reaching fulfillment. You are walking into the completed version of what once existed only in promise. The long journey of uncertainty was never about survival. It was about shaping your soul to carry completion with humility. Chosen one, the fullness of revelation feels like sunrise after years of night. The same roads that once felt endless now glow with purpose. You understand now that the waiting was never empty. It was the womb of wisdom. The delay became the language through which heaven taught you endurance, discernment, and dependency. You no longer see waiting as a curse. You recognize it as consecration. The story makes sense now. You see how every divine pause protected you from paths that would have drained your purpose. You see how silence guarded your spirit from voices that would have distorted your hearing. You understand why heaven hid you, refined you, and then revealed you. You were never forgotten, you were being formed. Every quiet season was an act of mercy disguised as stillness. And now, standing on the other side of delay, you feel the weight of revelation, not heavy, but holy. You realize that the same God who slowed your steps was also the one preparing your stage. The why behind the delay is clear. Heaven wasn't postponing you, it was positioning you. The wait was heaven's way of ensuring that your heart, your habits, and your humility would match your destiny. Chosen one. Full circle moments often come wrapped in peace, not performance. You won't need to force anything. You'll simply find yourself standing in spaces that once felt distant, speaking with wisdom you once prayed for, carrying confidence you once lacked. The delay trained you to trust the invisible, and now that trust has become your foundation. Even as doors open and manifestations unfold, never lose sight of this truth. The process was the promise. The destination is beautiful, but the becoming is divine. The delay was heaven's masterpiece, sculpting you into a reflection of endurance and grace. What you gained in the waiting is more valuable than what you were waiting for. You carry now the light of understanding, not the shallow joy of quick blessings, but the deep peace of divine timing. The same patience that sustained you will now sustain others through you. Your voice has changed. It carries weight. You no longer speak from theory, but from testimony. You are a living revelation of how divine delay births eternal strength. Chosen one. Every step was sacred. Every detour was divine. You were not late. You were right on time. The God who delayed you was also the one who delivered you. What you have now is not the result of speed, but of surrender. Heaven's rhythm became your heartbeat. The pause became your power. As you look back over everything, you will realize that the delay was never about denial. It was about definition. It defined your faith, refined your purpose, and aligned your heart. What once made you weep now makes you worship. You no longer ask why with pain, but with awe. You no longer see waiting as wasted time, but as the womb of miracles. The story has come full circle. The waiting birthed wisdom. The silence birthed strength. The loss birthed leadership. The delay was necessary, not 1 second of it wasted. Heaven knew that the one emerging from this process would not just survive delay, but would carry its revelation to a generation that has forgotten how to wait. Chosen one, you have reached the end of this divine message, but it is not the end of your story. You have walked through revelation, refinement, restoration, and the unfolding of heaven's purpose. Now you stand as living proof that delay is not denial, that hidden seasons are sacred, and that divine timing never fails. Heaven smiles over you. Every moment you thought was lost has been redeemed. Every prayer you thought went unheard has been answered in ways you could not imagine. You are not the same person who began this journey. You have become a vessel of wisdom, a carrier of faith, and a testament to divine patience. Let this be the moment you breathe. Lift your head and thank God for the process that shaped you. You are standing in grace. You are walking in purpose. You are living in alignment with heaven's design. The same hand that delayed you has now released you prepared, strengthened, and crowned. If these words touched your heart, like and share this message so that others who are still waiting can find hope in your light. Each share spreads this flow of encouragement to someone who may be sitting in their own silent season, wondering if God still hears them. Take a moment to comment below. Write a sentence of gratitude, a phrase of victory, or a declaration of faith. Your words will become part of a chorus of chosen ones, reminding the world that heaven's timing is always perfect. And if your spirit longs to keep walking this journey of revelation and strength, subscribe not as a follower, but as part of a family of faith. Together, we grow, we endure, and we rise. Chosen one, your delay had a purpose, and your purpose is now. Shine,